Sure, Margaret or Meg Sheehan.
Barry?
Barry Cosgrove.
Joe Trick?
Oh, Joe.
Oh,
Okay, sorry, a second gentleman in the middle, please, again.
Barry Cosgrove. Cosgrove, C-O-S-G-O-V.
And, Filmer?
I am John Gonzalez.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, again, around the table, Bob Aronimo, John Shirtliff, Mike Harrison, John Garrettson, Jim Nolan,
Now,
Dick Ward.
Joe Trick.
sorry.
Joe Trick. T-R-I-P-P.
Okay.
Excuse me, John, would you repeat your last name, I'm sorry?
Cheryl.
Oh, I apologize, my mistake. I'm sorry, sir, I missed your name.
Ironimal.
Oh, forgive me.
Yep.
Robert,
Yes.
thank you, I'm sorry.
Well, as we left, as the ongoing saga here goes along, after we left the meeting last week, I made a phone call to the Makepeace Company on Thursday morning. And I said, I need an analysis of what you've been doing for trucks, at least most recently. And I got to left a message with Jim. I got a call back that afternoon. And they said, well, we had this number of trucks on these days. I said, that's more than 50. He says, yes. 50 trucks is the limit commercially, and over the 50 trucks is agriculture. I said, this was an agricultural sale? And he said, yes, Beaton's and others are buying the material from us. I reiterated, that's not exempt, and said, that's it, 50 trucks. 50 is 50 trucks. And I said, you need to shut down and limit all of your sites to 50 trucks, if that's what we have on the limits. They are, on the 3 sites that Makepeace has. I got a call from Jim Kane himself the next morning. He had a meeting with the men. It's limited to 50 trucks on each site. And the site has been just shut down and limited to 50. The issue was a misinterpretation of the agricultural exemption for agriculture. Essentially, they felt that if it was going to ag, that it was going to be a regular exempt, that it was exempt. Not, that's a sale. And I said, that is an absolute sale. When we did the hearings with our abutters and everybody else, we made a compact with them and we said 50 trucks, not 50 of commercial. And these, Makepeace already had a whole bunch of sales that they were ongoing sales. And then the Cranberry guys started calling them up and saying, we're building bog. And all hell broke loose in the end of third week of March. And looking at the numbers that I got for the last quarter, they jumped up and they're logging the loads and everything. It was just that they felt they could go over 50 because it was an agricultural exemption. I cleared that up, and the reason that we're here tonight is we need to communicate this to everybody that has a permit in our community and clarify this. The Secretary of State cautioned us when the bylaw was redone not to inhibit agricultural movement of material. This is a sale regardless of whether it's agricultural or a commercial, selling it to a person who's making concrete. And so they should be limited to the number of trucks that we set on those roads. The issue came down to is they wanted to fulfill the needs of the other growers. There was one grower that called me up after all this hit this all came to a halt on Friday. I got a call Friday afternoon, you're killing me. We need 44 trucks of sand to be able to complete our bog construction work. And I said, no, it's 50 trucks. Our issue seems to come down is that Makepeace has 3 sites, and that one area that's there is creating a conflagration of trucks. And I think we all know that. And was thank you, Margaret, for bringing it up to us, because that's, in going by there, the trucks are like cats, and sometimes you see them and sometimes you don't. But actually, getting, over there, seeing what's going on, it shut down to 50 trucks a day, and they know it, because otherwise we'll take the permits away, and, that's what needs to happen on the, sites that's there. Obviously, we missed the ball on having the, catch up with the state funding the, renovation, and everybody getting geared up in the springtime to getting ready to put sand on. So they had excavated during the winter, and then suddenly a bunch of growers all needed sand at the same time. And we had trucks going over to a guy on Tremont Street, and he needed 44 loads just for a small bog. Everybody is using more sand than ever on the rebuild on the new modern bogs that everybody's building. And that's a good thing, because it will help the bogs be more productive. But we're faced with what happens with all of this crunch at one time. So I just said, you gotta figure it out, and you stop your commercial customers, you do whatever is necessary to do this. I've gone by there and ran the road now almost daily.
Sorry.
I've run it almost daily to see what's going on, and the traffic has definitely let up on the road over there on Federal Road and Farmer Market Road. So we're meeting this, but it also shows though that we missed the boat on anticipating some of this, and that we should have been more prescient about what was going on. The Makepeace Company immediately stopping the work from Thursday when I spoke with them till Friday. Great, that's what they should do, but they knew that this was, once we gotten the word out to them that agricultural exemption does not include a sale of sand. An agricultural exemption means that if you were going to move sand to your bog and you had it in one location, moved it to another, then that is what's exempt, but not for sale, trade, or bartering. So that's how it reads. They have stopped, and we're faced with now a communication issue. I called the other large sites and told them 50 is the limit, because if anybody else, if they wanted to jump to another, then the other sites, be it Plymouth Street and some of the Plymouth is the other large site that's, Plymouth Street is the other large site that is hauling a lot of material out. Most of theirs goes north, and that's handled. And they said they had exceeded the 50 loads a day on their area over there. I went by there, and they had the same flowage that was coming out, but this also shows a weakness that we need to do something about, that brings up some of our other discussion that we had last week also. And I think this needs to be how we monitor and how we wind up changing our purposes. So the meeting tonight here was to essentially say what has happened, and then to throw out some ideas and discuss them about what we think is going to be appropriate for changing our processes and procedures. And that's it. I think at the least, what Barry had suggested about having a engineered certification of the engineered amounts coming out. In other words, along with the summary every quarter, we should get an engineer certificate stating that this is, these numbers are true, and that certify them by the engineer, the assisting engineer that's gonna be there.
Haven't we always had, when we were looking at an application for a permit?
Yep.
We had an estimate from an engineer on how much material in a pod.
Yep.
If it was a 2 or 3 section project.
We do, like on Saturday morning, we'll see, There were in the,
So we have that, but we just have never had an engineered certified,
we meet with the engineer when we do our site visit,
Yeah.
and he'll walk us through that. But what we need to do is get somebody to sign off on the numbers when we get the sheets. We have trusted people, but I think that the area of trust right now just could be, questioned a little bit more. So I think that we need to kick it up a notch and, do that. But I'm throwing these out. I want discussion on all of this because we're going to be
yeah.
having the,
Well, you know, when I'm thinking about what Barry said and what you were talking about and how we can become, more certified in our approach to it, I've always looked for help from Bob and John because they work with moving earth. And, you know, we go into a site like that one up in North Carver,
SLT.
SLT, you know, and they look at it and they know from their experience approximately how much material was being moved and if it matched up at all with our truck things. So I've always depended kind of on our guys, on our own committee, but, I do worry that the public and other people feel like we don't have our hands on it and we're not doing something as closely as we should. So, you know, I kinda thought about your suggestion on being certified and having a certified engineer put his stamp, is it, Rob, right on that sheet so that when we got our truck sheets, we can match them up.
Yes.
I mean, I can't see as that wouldn't, you know, there's an expense to it, but wouldn't that be the expense of the owner?
The owner, it is. And that's why I don't think that if the suggestion had been made and we talked about this before, but we never made the move because it would cost the town money or it will cost the applicants money. I think we've seen a larger concentration of larger movement and that just dictates that we need to be more cautious with the approach and then getting a certified engineer to give us the guidance on the lines. An engineer stamp is like a certification. They don't take that lightly. They aren't gonna certify fake numbers essentially. So they're gonna certify something that's gonna be appropriate. If they lose their stamp, they lost their own business. And,
We've had a few applicants that we didn't totally trust.
right. And,
But I mean, most we have, but, that's true, a certified
That's right.
engineer, I would think would not be falsifying anything, because they're gonna lose their stamp, aren't they?
that's right.
Or
So,
lose their ability to be a
Feelings
certified
and
engineer.
somebody give me some feedback on what you think, gentlemen.
Well, I mean, most applicants that come in front of us have an engineered plan to begin with, so that same engineer should be accountable for all the tracking of that material that's, and I think it should be, whether it's in phases, it should be done, you're saying quarterly?
Yes, well, with the sheets, with the truck sheets, what I'm looking to do is certify.
It's just to
the
match
truck
them up.
sheets.
Right.
No, what are you meaning, each phase?
We get, no, not each phase, no, we get paid quarterly
Okay.
by the applicant. So when that quarterly monies come in, then we can match up with the engineer's estimate.
But what consists of a quarterly? How many quarters is there?
Four quarters in a
quarters.
year. Every 3 months, we get, essentially, every 3 months, they send in the truck sheets of what has been going on for the last 3 months.
Okay.
And we sent
And they would be on
reminders.
site?
I'm sorry?
And they would stay on site?
Who would stay on, does?
Somebody would stay on site making sure that, you know, what they're saying, you know. It's easy to get, say, 1,000 trucks out of there and not even realize that you took 1,000 trucks out of there. Not 1,000, but say 500 trucks.
Well, that's why we want the engineer to certify the numbers.
Right.
And, so that they would be able
Well, how are
to.
they measuring that?
By the topos that they have on the original plan.
Okay.
You know what I mean? They can tell,
Yeah.
we've dropped it down 10 feet, taking 2
So they
acres.
come in with all equipment again and
That's at the applicant's expense.
So that would have to be something that would have to be factored into that, is that should have to be a prerequisite.
It will go along with the permit. What we're talking about are adjustments to how we would permit and authorize, in other words, procedures that we would have. I feel we formed a compact with the abutters when we said there's gonna be 50 trucks. And essentially, that's why I said, I'm sorry, agriculturally or whatever. This is, we sat with the abutters, we told them it was gonna be 50 trucks, it needs to be 50 trucks out of these sites that's there. I said, it doesn't, if it's agriculture or whatever else. Part of the issue goes back to, where obviously, I hate to say this, but we have a concentration of sites in one area, but it's still not able to meet the needs of the building that's going on. We almost need more sites, I hate to say, to be able to open this up more, or we're gonna throttle down the bog. The renovation, innovation grants that the state is giving are year to year. They gave some last year, and some people get started, and they gave some this year, and there's a window of opportunity that ends in June or July, and they need to have the bogs done, planted, and then somebody from the state comes out and
Yes,
says,
familiar with the,
here's your check for $100,000 for incentivizing people for doing this. A bog reconstruction effort can cost $25,000 to $50,000 per acre, and it's an expensive proposition. So people are looking for assistance. It needs to be done on most old bogs to be able to make them modernly productive now. So as we've gotten better at trying to grow cranberries, we were going downhill and losing acreage, and thus we lose farms, and thus the farms are then open to development or whatever else. Our community entrusts us with the ability to try to manage the sand and thusly manage keep the cranberry growing industry functioning and working along okay. But we do it, everybody loves to see a cranberry bog. What they don't like to see is 50 trucks going by the door at 7 in the morning. So that's the God's honest truth in how we deal with this. So we have a balance of, we need earth out to the cranberry bogs. If you go down Tyhonet Road and towards the end, just before the cemetery in Wareham, you look across those bogs over there, there's 150 truckloads of sand. And that's for a springtime standing of the Makepeace bogs that are right next to those. They need just 150 trailer trucks of sand just to barge sand those areas, and that's a 3-year cycle. They need to do this every 3 years. There's an enormous amount of sand management, and it's one of the 3 resources that you need to have: the water, the acreage, and the sand to be able to successfully grow cranberries. As we throttle this down, and we should balance the usage of the highways and the land that we have with what is going to be, keeps the townspeople happy with having the rural agricultural atmosphere that we have, with being able to drive down the roads without being run off the roads by 18-wheelers. And that's what we're struggling with trying to do here. The guideline should be that you should be able to move material for your own property in a safe way that would be just not crazy. Makepeace had been dumping material there as I drove by over towards Mill Pond Diner to go to Wareham Center as I cut through the property, and they built that up over a period of time that was there. So they went bringing 150 trucks in one day. The issue with renovation is that you have a time set period, and you get ready to go, and you need to have this planted and done by June. The end of June is pushing it for getting good vines in. So as we wind up doing some of this showed up as a fault of us, somebody, they misinterpreted it. I'm game, and we need to, from the committee, I'd like to have a motion to send a letter out to all of our, permit holders to clear this up. And I wanna mention, if we're so inclined, immediately, the agricultural exemption, and get that out there. If you'd like to have more discussion about an engineered plan, if somebody has an engineered plan, we'd like to have that stamp on it quarterly with their fees, with the fees that they're, sending in.
So you want to include that in the same motion?
Well, let's discuss this now and make sure that if they have an engineered plan, I think that, we're in agreement, that we should have an engineered, a stamp on that would come in with the tally sheets. Yes?
All right, so,
And that we should clear up this agricultural exemption that involves only your own movement of your own material. So if you're going to move material from your bog to another bog that you have down the street, that is exempt from earth removal procedures and practices.
so there's two parts to the letter. One of the cover, yeah, a motion, let me see if I can. Tell you what, usually if we make a motion and we're covering it basically, then you condense it and put it in and then send it to us.
Yep.
So that we see it on our computer and then it goes forward.
Yes.
So, I would like to make that motion.
Okay. And
No second?
No, can you revise, say that motion again?
And it's gonna be, well, you're already gonna have to know, the first part of it is to clarify the 50 loads.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And the distinction between saleable material and use of just agriculture, like you using it for your own logs.
Right.
You use it, you sell it to John,
That's commercial.
and that's a commercial situation.
any transaction between one agricultural entity and another agricultural exempt entity is exempt.
That's
So
the
one
first-
thing that I think they need to know, one thing that they need to know, because they don't live in that world of anybody has their own blog and they're moving their own sand to their own blog,
Yeah.
they don't even have a permit to begin with.
No,
So, I mean, there could be a
That's fair.
truck on
Well,
Sea
that's
Road as a permit applicant, but he's actually just hauling sand to his own blog.
that's their business.
That's it, right, that's exempt.
So that would be Makepeace in itself.
That's right.
Exactly, yeah.
So then if it was agricultural, say Makepeace was selling it to you, that would be still a sale.
That's a
right?
commercial
That's
sale,
That would be
yes.
separate 50
So
from
that's the
commercial sale,
first, yeah,
right?
Right.
That would be an agricultural sale,
that's the
not a
first
commercial
part of the
sale.
motion.
Yes, it is.
Right.
Barry, your question?
If it's not out of order, did I cut you off the end of the hand? You sure? I don't know what your procedure is on whether you take public comment on the motion, but I just called your attention that, and first of all, thank you for your report and your actions. Under your bylaws, if you have reason to believe that someone is violating a permit, and it seems like you've got more than reason, you've got proof.
Yeah.
You have an obligation, not an option, you have a legal obligation to order the operator to cease and desist.
We have done that in the past.
So the letter
We do that.
would have to be a cease and desist letter.
Yes.
That's one. Two, and I'm sorry, the business part of me keeps coming out, I think what you need to do is also order an accountant,
Say again?
an accountant,
Yes.
because you've been cheated out of,
Well, that was gonna be the second part of the letter.
so you've got to get an accountant for the economics.
Yeah.
And then the third part is your point, which is under the permit, they had to give you a before, so an elevation, so that you can do an after. So they should have a certified engineer tell you precisely what's been taken out of there.
That's what we're asking for.
So I think if
And
you
that's easy to do.
hit those three, because you made me think of something at the last meeting. If you've got 100 acres, I'm making these numbers up.
Mhm.
and you wanna build 50 acres of bog, you don't strip the 100 acres, right? You purposely leave some berms. Why would you strip it all and then go back and have the expense of building up the berms and all that? I mean, it's just.
Well, the yardage is already incorporated in the plans
Yeah.
to what it needs, you know,
But
so.
I'm just saying, it collides with common sense, that you'd strip the 100 acres and then go back and build all the
Yeah.
expense to build the,
But we would not allow 100 acres to be stripped
stripped,
at
yeah.
once.
but I'm,
We would say that 100 acres is gonna be broken down into 7 phases, 5 phases.
exactly right.
Right.
Exactly
So
right.
that's
So
what we
what's-
do. We allow them to take out just in the phase, one phase, and when that's completed, then they can start on the next one.
But let me
And we
ask you a
give
question
them
about
the-
that,
we
which
give them
goes to your motion. I understand everything you just said, I totally agree. But this, you should consider this, I shouldn't say you should, you might consider this in your motion. If you've got years-old permits, as you do, that were put in phases for just the reasons you explained,
Yep.
and there ain't no bogs, excuse my English,
Oh.
like there were supposed to be, right? Then you ought to cease and desist anything until they go back and do what they promised you they would do.
Yep.
So they're cheating you out of money. They told you they're taking the sand to build the bog. They never built the bog, and then they want you guys to keep giving more permits. And so you can't be a printing press for permits for someone you find you can't trust.
Well, that's why that we visit the sites at least once a year. Okay, and then we visit the site when it's done to make sure the slopes are what we require and that it's got vegetative coverage.
But when you
And
visit the
for
site in those annual trips that you talked about, what you're compelled to do here.
Yep.
Do you have an engineer look at the before and after?
The engineer is there with us. He walks us through the plan and where they are on the plan there.
So he gives you that guidance, and
Yes,
this
he
looks
does.
like it's in the ballpark right there.
The fellow who gives us the guidance.
Okay, thank you.
And generally, something as large as any of the Makepeace sites or over at Plymouth Street, or that, we get guidance directly from the engineer and is to be brought up to date. Now, rather than flogging ourselves too much here, there are circumstances where there are people who would have a small amount of material to be moved that might not need an engineered plan. And we have that option in our bylaw of having a expedited plan, expedited permit, and essentially that's there. But most of the permits have gotten larger as people are doing one-shot shopping. And what has happened is that as they develop solar and BOD at the same time or something, such as the site 131, 12C is a solar and BOD mix. And that was why that one was getting to be so large and in doing this. So our the purpose is I'd like to inform everybody and let's not do this on the fly. I wanna have some discussion about this. I wanna have everybody notified. First of all, this caught me unawares that somebody didn't have the understanding about what agriculturally exempt was. And they should have had that understanding. It's been remedied, but it needs to be clearly understood by everybody. I had an argument from another hauler that I said, look, this is the way it's going to be, is you're limited to those trucks. If he's gonna haul his own material out of that pit, and you're doing it for him, and he's taking it to another property of his own, that's exempt. But it isn't necessarily, because it's no sale. There's no sale of material that's there. That's his land, he's taking it out, moving it to another location. And that's not a sale, and
That
that's
should
not regulated by us.
That should be pretty clear.
Yeah.
I mean, once we put it right on paper, black and white.
That's what I'd like to do.
The notion, as we all know, the notion that Makepeace doesn't know that, the notion that doing it without having to pay is oops, we all know that's fiction.
Well,
It's fiction. It's deliberate.
But that's why what we wanna do.
And what, I'm sorry, Gary, and why do you say that? I'm just curious.
Well, because they're a multi-million-dollar corporation
Yeah.
that's been in this business forever. They've had to work with this committee for 15 years. This is one of the earliest committees that's ever been established for earth removal. They've been before it 15 times. 15 times they've had the obligation to read the regulations. 15 times they've committed to comply with the regulations. And the regulations are abundantly clear. What's a sale and what isn't. So that's why. Someone makes a mistake once, and they're a little operator, hey, you know, it happens. I make mistakes all the time. But I can tell you, our corporations don't come before bodies for 15 years and cheat.
Well,
They were agriculture before they were sand and gravel, they know what's going on.
Well, I think that's part of the confusion on their part, because they're actually still building bog.
It's not
And that's
confusion.
and that's,
It's a high-level
can I
executive.
finish?
It's
Can I
not
finish?
confusion.
I think the building of the new bogs that are being done is where they're thinking the agricultural part. You know, that's where,
Go to the read,
Yeah,
go to the read
that's a
website.
loophole that they use into.
Gentlemen, please, one
No.
man at a time, okay?
I'm sorry.
Sure, I'm sorry.
Go to the read website. Read,
but that's a commercial entity. I
you
don't,
bet your life
yeah,
it is.
right.
And look at what they say about what their reserves of sand are. Every spoonful of sand, as you confirmed in the last meeting, and I agree with you, every spoonful of sand they take and put to read is commercial.
yes,
Yet,
Yeah.
in their own website for Reed,
Yeah.
they say they have an infinite supply of sand. Which means you should be getting an infinite amount of money for every single truckload. So I raise that point to say, how do I know they're making a mistake?
but we do get the money from that.
we do,
Well, you don't know
Yeah.
that you do, because you already know that they're taking X, some number X, meaning unknown, of sand is being trucked every day.
but
And
Barry,
it's well above 50.
yeah, getting truck sheets, and, I'll beg to differ with you, because getting truck sheets from the Makepeace Company, and then having an engineered plan that we start with, and seeing the
So do you
material
mean to
move.
say that you, for quarter after quarter, you've been getting truck sheets that show more than 50 trips per day?
No,
Then how does what you just said make any
It's
sense?
because of the yardage.
Yeah,
The yardage
because of the
is matched
yardage.
up to like, phase one is 100,000 yards, you know what I mean? So if those trucks came out of pit, would you say 131,
131.
and matched up to phase one, that's how we know that that's
They
going
trucked
there.
that much, but where did it go?
Well, whether it went to Reed or whether it went to, oh yeah, I know what you're saying, because of the confusion of the bog building and not bog building, right? Is that what you mean?
Well, I'm just saying, okay, you can match up the truck sheet.
You get a numerator and a
Right.
denominator, take 5
Where's
minutes
it
to do
going?
the
How
math.
much
Please,
do they
Barry.
owe you?
Well, I mean, if one site is 100,000 yards, we know what we're getting exactly from that one site.
No, you don't, because
How
they're
do
saying
we
some,
know though? I mean,
so they say some is agricultural, it's going to, we're moving it over
to their own
Wait a
bogs, right.
Right, so where's the sheets that say,
But if they're making a sale, another sale to another cranberry grower, we have, that's part of our truck
You
sheets.
have
you
what
have
they
the truck
gave you.
sheets?
You have only what they gave you, sir.
Yeah, right, right.
And if you stop the analysis at that, let's adjourn the meeting. Right? If all you have to do is just say, okay, you say so, therefore that's the answer, then why do you have a committee? The whole purpose is compliance.
That's right.
So you have someone you know is taking
Right.
more than 50 trucks. See, what did they pay for? If they paid for more than 50 trucks, they've paid for the violation, so there's your proof at the end of the day. Then
Right.
you extrapolate back, what's the size of the truck? How much sand is it? You get my point?
Yes, I
You
do.
can't just
Yep.
say, oh, well, they told us, that's the end of it.
The only, unknown is material that comes out that's going from one Makepeace sand area to another Makepeace. Is that your point, Myra?
it's not, well, it is unknown, everything's unknown, because, we're really trying to figure this out, we're trying to get an understanding of what the town is owed, is this really agricultural? And I did do a public records request, a number of times,
Yep.
And most recently this week, Mrs. Dayhill has said that she doesn't have any records and has referred me back to you.
Yep.
So, it's kind of been hard for us to figure out, how do you keep track of this? How long has it been going on? How much is being used from bog to bog within Makepeace property? And how much is being sold commercially, either through Reed or to another bog owner, or to the concrete company or South Shore Landscape, like when I followed the truck the other day.
We track the commercial sales, and that could include sales to another cranberry grower. What we do not track is Makepeace taking material from one sand pit out of one of the commercial pits to another.
Right.
And that's what we look to have the engineer clarify. We have truck sheets, well, this is what Makepeace took for their own, use. What I did on Thursday, is, I said, nothing but commercial sales out of these 3 sites. No Makepeace, truck to truck, no Makepeace bog to bog, no Makepeace, site to bog. I said, it's just going to be 50 trucks, commercial sale, that's it. And that's going to, essentially, stymie in some way the progress of the, pit progression, let's say, so that it'll slow down some of the site, but rather than getting confused, we needed clarity on all of these, the 3 sites. And essentially, that's what we've, gotten by saying 50 commercial sales. Now, don't mix up, agriculture and commercial, together, Margaret. A agricultural sale could be to another grower, and, that would be
Wait a minute, I am really confused, cause I
No.
thought you said that was a commercial sale, if I'm selling.
it is a commercial
So,
sale.
okay,
It
so
is
it's
a
a
commercial
commercial
sale, but-
agricultural sale, but
But
it's
the
really.
purpose of the pit is agriculture.
No, the purpose, okay, so yeah, this gets into my question, which I'm really trying to understand. So, when I look at the bylaw, it says that, this is a agricultural and residential district. And so you would think it'd be, residential district, houses, some agriculture. It does not say earth removal, commercial earth removal is allowed, so you've got a commercial activity going on
Yeah.
in a residential agricultural area, so how does that not violate the bylaw?
The bylaw passed muster with the Attorney General when the bylaw was written.
Right,
And it was last updated, so I would rely upon them as to, giving us guidance about this was allowed. And essentially, that's why we did the bylaw and had it reviewed by the Attorney General. And, that was what we're looking to. So I can't talk zoning issues, about that. It will wind up being an agricultural entity after the earth is removed. They need to do something with the earth to get to building bog.
well, yeah,
It's there.
that again goes to, our questions about, and I'll pass this around, because, I did take a quick look at the blueprints, and my understanding when you build a bog is you have different soil, borings.
Yep.
And you need to understand what soil is where, and where you're gonna build the bogs, but there's no soil boring with the plans. Again, it's been hard to
No,
figure that out,
yeah.
because I can't get the plans. But, and to go back to your point about the truck sheets, if you have the truck sheets,
Yeah.
they're public records, so it would be really great to get those,
Yeah.
so we can see what's going on, and to get more details about this bog that they're building. So, the way I look at this current site, the 1-2, the 100-acre site, they're gonna strip mine and take out 4 million cubic yards over 100 acres to build 18 acres of bogs and a huge reservoir.
And a solar site is going in there at
No.
the same time.
Not on this one, where's the permit for that?
I
Here,
was-
I can show you.
131 dash
One-
12C has a solar site. in the
12C.
front part of it.
Yeah, I have to say, I'm losing track of being able to write the records.
Alright, so I have
Mr. Gonzalez, will we be able to get a copy of your tape?
Absolutely.
Thank you, because we'll need it.
Margaret, for clarity, but the site 131-1-2C has a large amount of solar already in there, Margaret. Meg. It's already there.
So 131, okay, so I'll share my maps that I made with you, and they might be, you know, off, but I just tried to figure out what permits have been given out over the years for each of the lots.
Yep.
And to figure out, did they, you know, where are the bogs, and that would be a good thing to look at on Saturday when we go to, when Patrick comes on the,
Patrick will go with us on Saturday to do,
Right.
the walkabout on the bogs with the sites.
right, so I was looking at lot 1, 2C, 4 million cubic yards, and those are the plans on the 100-acre site that say they're gonna build a bog and a reservoir. And that's what we talked about last time, I think we calculated so if you look at, hold it north, like with north, pointing north. Right,
Okay, bogs and reservoir, but in the entrance, right, as you go up into there, there's an immense amount of solar. I don't know how many
okay,
acres of solar.
I think we're talking about a different place, so this.
Are you
No,
across from
that is-
Ocean Spray? Is that the one you're talking about?
I'm talking about the new one that you gave the 4 million cubic yard.
But that's right as you drive into that entrance, it's all solar.
Yeah.
When you,
There's a lot.
Margaret,
That's to the
when you-
left, but this
The solar, yeah.
Is that the Golden Fields?
Golden Field, this is like
Yes.
phase 3 of Golden Field, as far as I can tell.
Well,
Because,
we're going to do the site walk, and let's reserve your understanding of that for
well,
when
I mean, I
Patrick comes
have the
with us.
permit right here that says 4 million cubic yards on lot 1-2-6C, granted last year, over a period of whatever, 7 phases.
Yeah.
How can there be solar there now?
Well, there was already solar that was going to be started. The
No,
planning board
that
has, there's a permitted solar array that's going
Already
in.
up.
That's lot 2-1, look further down. Okay, you're somewhere else, that's not on this lot.
Well, it's absolutely, as you drive down, Ocean Spray is on your left, the large lot, and that's 131-2C. It's 59 Federal Road, if I remember correctly.
And that has gate 24,
No,
No.
so this is 59. So it's like the most northern of the sites.
well, the most northern of the sites is actually, where the Reed Scale House is.
But that's on the east side.
That's correct.
So then you come down and you have lot 1-1. What's on lot 1-1?
1-11 and -2C. So it's, those are the lots, and there is a large solar array that has to be permitted that's in there. It doesn't involve us. We're behind and to the side of the solar is where the cranberry bogs are going.
Right, so the phase on the colored map that I gave you, right? Phase C6, 59 Federal Road, solar. That was subject to an earth removal permit or some kind of earth removal. Because when you look at the map from, say, 2016, that was all earth was removed out of there. So was there a permit for that?
You've lost me on what you're trying to present to us, Margaret.
Okay, so this map, right?
Yeah, C1, where it says the cranberry bog expansion? Is that what you're
that's a
talking about?
different story. So C6.
Oh, C6.
Golden Field, 59 Federal Road, that is solar right now, and that was put on top of a site that was previously mined out. Right? know if there was a permit for that, but you can look at Google Earth and you can see that in like 2016, it was strip mine.
Oh, that's down off of Charlotte Furnace Road.
No, it's not.
No.
This is the northernmost solar project, right below the Long King Cove bog expansion, which I have another question about.
It'll be across the street from where Reed is, right?
Yeah,
That's, across the street from Reed is the, large, that's lot 131, 1-2C.
So basically, the new bog is going behind that.
behind it,
Behind that,
right.
yes, that's correct. That's where it's going, so, Margaret, we can't direct you into, some of this. We're dealing with 3 sites. The site where the Reed Scale House is, this 131-12C, and then the other, site that's 0 Hammond Street, that is the waterhole site. And there's no solar, that's on any of those other 2, only this lot 131, 1-2C.
Okay, so just so I can understand that then, so that's the one site is the 2020 earth removal permit, right?
Yes.
For 4 million cubic yards
Yes,
for
that's correct. That's lot 131, 1-2C.
1-2C, right. And the plans that we looked at for that, say there's 100 acres.
Yeah.
They're gonna strip mine 100 acres and put in 19 acres of bogs and a reservoir.
Yes.
So, the plans that we looked at did not have any detail about bog construction, type of soil, et cetera, so that's just one question that we
Okay.
had.
But essentially, we are, making a cranberry bog is essentially, the material can be brought in and then planted and then, constructed after the fact. It's not, we aren't trying to get down to natural organic soils that are there any longer. So a new cranberry bog would have material that would be brought in of organic matter, and then 10 to 15 inches of sand on top of that, and vines put in. So it would be essentially a modern cranberry bog now.
But why would you strip 100 acres to build a modern bog of 17 acres? Can you explain that?
For 18 acres?
Yeah.
Because you need all of that material that's everywhere else on the site.
Well, you
To
just said
build
you
the
need
bog?
3 feet of
No,
sand.
not to build the bog, because you can't build a bog on the top of a hill. And essentially, they're lowering all of that. They need the material, for the rest of their farms.
And on that plan though, what is the size of the water hole? It's substantial, isn't it?
Say again?
The tailwater recovery system?
Yes,
Isn't
the
that
water
substantial
hole,
size?
the water hole system is, I believe, down at the bottom of the bog.
Right,
It's
I
a water
mean, the
recovery.
area that's taken up is substantial.
I
We
believe it
will
was
go
8
over this with
acres.
the engineer, when we're there on Saturday morning. And, we can, get the
But
details.
plenty of people successfully build 17 acres of bog, and now stripping 100 acres, true?
That's true,
Can be done very easily,
yeah,
right?
it can be.
And it's illogical, isn't it? Just tell me if I'm wrong. It's financially illogical to strip 100 acres and then pay whatever expenses, even if it's from your own land, to come in and rebuild up what you stripped away to have the berms and the roads and the access points around. It's illogical.
Well,
isn't it?
basically, a new bog is done in layers, like you have an impervious material that you have to bring back and put in.
I understand all that. I'm
you know?
asking about the expense associated with stripping it down to the ground and then having to build up all the access roads and everything around it. It's illogical.
But Barry, that one bog, in the whole scheme of things, is opening up access to all of that yardage of material that's needed on the other 1,500 acres of bog.
As long as you can account for that, true?
Right,
Well, a counter, that's needed in the Makepeace Company and/or a successful cranberry operation. So you need to have sand resources. What you're doing is
I understand
accessing.
that, sir,
Let
but
me
you don't
finish.
need to take 100 acres to build just that bog, true?
No, of course not.
Of course not, right? So that other stuff they take, 100 minus 17, let's leave the water hole out just to make the math easy. 100 minus 17, there's a lot of material there that's gonna have nothing to do with those 17 acres, true?
It has something to do with it, because that 17 acres of bog is then essentially giving a resource to the rest of the farm, 1,500 acres, of which is needed other sand. If I'm following you, that is opening up an access to sand resource that's needed. So you're saying that Makepeace should only be able to build, when I just talked about 150 loads of sand that went down just to maintain other bogs. What they're doing is opening up a resource for their use on the rest of the farm, and in the end, in this putting in this area, when it's left, what's left is a 17-acre bog with a water hole and everything
So,
else.
based on your logic,
Yeah,
necessarily, for decades, since the Pilgrims landed, Makepeace must have been purchasing sand from somebody else.
no, they've been using their resources over many years. Similar as my farm has a giant resource that we mine every year just to maintain, not build new, just to maintain our property. And Makepeace needs to access that. And if they can access it, generate capital during lean times, and then wind up not building a development of anything, but wind up with a cranberry bog, that's a win-win for the area here.
Okay, I understand.
So look at it as a
No, I
resource that's
understand it.
they're opening up there,
I
rather than
understand.
just the destruction of land. What they're doing is accessing sand that's essential to their farm, same way as water or anything else is essential. They're accessing 4 million yards of material that will come out of there to keep their business.
But wait a minute, I thought you said it was being sold commercially, so.
It is. That's
So, so it's to make money, not to
Well-
use on the bar.
both, Margaret. Money is also an essential resource to operate a business like the Makepeace Company.
But you can't be both.
Oh, excuse me? What do
They
you-
also help sustain my farm where I have no resources.
No, I
By
understand.
You know what I
By
mean? So
giving you
I
sand,
I
by
have to
selling
have,
sand.
I have to have a company like that.
I understand.
By
Look,
selling sand, right.
Right.
I think there's a misunderstanding. We totally get it, that you gotta have sand to survive, whether you get it on your own lot or you buy it from somebody else. We get it. What I'm talking about is 8th grade mathematics. Right? Makepeace functioned forever without strip mining hundreds of acres at a time. So the idea, just logically, class, the idea that you now all of a sudden have to strip 100, whatever, thousands of acres, it's something in the math isn't adding up. Now, I understand it's their land, and I understand that they got a better idea with their land, like selling it to somebody else to make money, which is why you granted them a commercial mining permit, right? I get all that.
Barry,
They did
one
it
of
to
the
make
other
money.
calls I got was from a guy who was threatening me for stopping the input of sand to his farm because Makepeace was backing off to 50 trucks a day. They're sustaining the resource of southeastern Massachusetts here with the sale of sand to other cranberry growers also.
Which is,
Not being benevolent.
No, I
Doing it,
understand.
they're
Oh,
making
But
money.
they're also supplying reed sand and gravel
I
and,
agree.
so,
so they are, we can all agree on one thing, can we not? They're not only a commercial, excuse me, a cranberry grower. They're not only the biggest developer in the county, which I have to laugh about, because every cranberry grower always says, well, if we don't let
Let's,
them do what they do, we're
Barry,
gonna have more
the
development.
discussion
than the
here
biggest
isn't
one."
about Makepeace, please. It's
Okay,
about
I'm
their
talking
lot
about anybody.
and their
in the
site, yeah.
That you guys gave them a commercial mining permit, true?
We gave them a commercial mining permit that ends it with an agricultural operation.
Well, they have an agricultural operation, but they,
No, the permit.
has to have, yeah.
they had to have a commercial mining permit for that portion of their mining that's unrelated to their own agricultural, correct?
Yes,
So they have another business, they have a commercial mining business, correct?
yes,
Okay, and you gave them the permit because they needed it, correct?
yeah,
So the issue here isn't really about opening up sand for their other bogs, we're talking about the commercial mining permit that they got and whether they're complying with it.
yes.
That's the
That's-
issue, right?
Right.
We've alleged that they're cheating.
Well-
You're telling us that they haven't cheated because they've been doing more than 50 trucks per day, and that doesn't match up with your financial records, true?
Yes,
Okay.
they went, they,
So that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. We understand they need sand, we understand you need sand, but they're supposed to play by the rules.
and that's what we're doing, Barry, is bringing everything into compliance with what's, there. Mr. Tripp?
Now, why can't they say, okay, this pit is strictly gonna be for all agriculture, whether it be agriculture for themselves or agricultural for sale? And then these pits are just commercial. That way you could keep it totally separate, the accountability would be, spot on.
Mr. Tripp, that's exactly what I brought them back to, because I didn't let them take any material out. Well, some of it is going, again, let's define commercial,
Sure.
which could be a sale to another cranberry garden.
Correct,
That's being used.
as long as it's not.
So what I had said was, no make-piece material can come out of these pits, so that it's just a clean, bill of lading that will just be, this is where it is, this is sale, and if you have enough sales to be able to do it.
Sure.
And that's, right now, there's more than enough sales to be able to do that.
Well, I think that the problem is, it's getting confused with all the different, entities of it all, so I think that would clarify a lot, be able to see between the lines where everything's going,
That's where we are right now, is that we went back to square one, and these three sites are only having commercial sales that come out of it. Commercial sales also include the sale of sand to other cranberry growers that has an agricultural end usage. There are also commercial sales that go to other entities that might be making concrete or something.
Sure.
The commercial sales also include trucks to reed, sand, and gravel, and that's a commercial sale, so they pay a fee going to reed, sand, and gravel also.
So that would have
that's
to be
open.
into their accounting, correct?
That's correct.
They pay us for every truck that goes out of it,
Yeah,
for that.
that's, the reed people don't pay us on every truck that goes out, they pay us on every truck that they take from Macy's that comes in. And essentially, being a commercial entity, it would be like trying to regulate Shorey Concrete or something. It's a commercially zoned area, it's a commercial operation, and thus it is separate, it's an entity within Makepeace, but, which they bought, but none of that material that comes out of there would have a lot of familiarity with us. It's going on roofs, it's going to Long Island, to be wherever, so
And in
that's,
fact, trucks that come into Reed
yeah,
could be coming into Reed from other Makepeace property, correct?
they could be coming in from other properties, but only the permitted, where we need to maintain that we get 10 cents a yard if it goes into Reed from a commercial operation. If they have a site that they wanna bring something else into, it should be permitted from us, because that's a commercial sale there. So the only material that should be coming in off a Makepeace site should be out of a certified, site, one of the three sites that we have here. Or if it's coming in from another town, when we get other towns that material could come in from, and other materials that come in, because Reed receives other material,
Right.
from what I'm told, that would be mixing perlite and everything else that goes in there, so they get trucks coming in.
Did you say there was a two-tiered pricing structure, it's
I
10
have
cents on
no-
one?
Oh, there is, yes, from the earth removal committee.
Yeah, could you remind me on that, it's 10 cents
It's 10 cents a yard for an agricultural end to the project.
Yeah.
It's SLT up in North Carver pays 25 cents because they're doing a development. They're doing a commercial development.
What if Makepeace takes sand from its own property,
Yep.
moves it to Reed to become mixed with a product that's used for aggregate, is that 25 cents?
No, this.
That's from agriculture.
But that's not ag to ag.
No,
Why would it be?
when stuff comes out of a property, let's say, make pieces where and they take it over to Reed, they're paying us 25 cents for the removal, and they're paying us 10 cents for the stuff that goes into the, Reed. So we're getting 35 cents.
So you get 35, that was my question, thank you. So you get a double on that.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
So the material that is coming out, Reed being a separate entity. So let's get back to the discussion about where we started with communicating essentially the miss on agricultural purpose of all of this in to the rest of the.
We started the motion on it.
So what we'd like to do is have a communication with all the permit holders that we have, that agricultural exemption only applies to material that's being moved by yourself to yourself. And that's internally. If you're moving material for sale to another entity, that's a commercial transaction and is subject to the conditions of the permit that you have. There's no overage on any of that.
And that price is,
Well, no,
We
it's
don't
not
need to
price,
mention
it's
it.
numbers, it's numbers, Dick, that you can't
Okay.
exceed 50 trips a day.
Yeah.
We got into this because Makepeace was exceeding 50 trips a day because they were essentially saying that, well, that's agricultural usage and that's exempt, and it's not. And when we're shipping log, everybody was screaming for sand, and Makepeace was fulfilling the need, and that was essentially what it was looked at was the agricultural exemption existed. So as we wind up having this letter that would go out to everybody that would entail this, along with
what was the second part?
the
Certified
certified engineer, and that an engineer should certify the truck slips that come out.
Every quarter.
Every quarter. And I hate to say this with a time obligation, but I think that we should do 2 site visits a year, one in the spring and one in the fall, with meeting with the engineer on site. And to get this back. And so we would do 2 site visits to every applicant in the spring and fall.
Is the engineer of your choosing?
Say again? No, the engineer is the fellow who set up the plan and did the plan for me.
But not all the permits had an engineered plan.
No, not
Because
all
they were
of them
under,
did.
So what do we do with that?
Well, no, what we would do is on the larger permits where there is an engineered plan, we would meet with the engineer. We would do 2 site visits on the smaller ones that have the expedited permit that's the small guy, what's his name, over off of 44, that we went in there and he has a small farm that he just had a little
When
hill.
these guys in?
That Wayne Vaughn was doing the removal for.
Oh,
I know you're not gonna.
The father is Greg.
Greg.
Greg Arnold, yeah, Greg Arnold.
Jake.
Jake Arnold, and that we would still visit him twice, but he doesn't need he has a permit, but he doesn't need a engineer, and we have the ability to not do it. Our real issue is with the larger permits, when we're doing 1 million yards or 4 million yards of material.
So we're gonna put a limit of yardage before you need it?
I think it would be, if we have engineered plans from an engineer, we should be getting an engineered certificate from it, John. be the way that we do it. If we don't have
We'd have
engineered
let
plans.
Other guys come in, say, and not have a plan.
Yeah.
Just, that this is a topo.
We have
of what
another
we
fellow that might be doing it, but he's going to do a plan. We're doing plans on almost everything because they wind up being larger now, and we need a better way of handling the larger plans. And, this would be one of the answers to it, is
Well, what
having
I'm
an
saying is, can
engineer.
we put a yardage amount that you have to have an engineer?
No, I don't think
Like,
so.
like in the development of a subdivision, they're allowed to take out 5,000 yards
Yes,
without a permit.
that's
I
correct.
think that's what John's getting at, something like that, you mean, John?
It's similar to
Set a
that.
standard to it, right?
I mean, what you're gonna find now is the cranberry grower might take now, cause he can't get it from Makepeace, and he has a few thousand yards.
Yep.
That he might wanna sell the fill off the top and to get to the sand.
I don't doubt that at all, and, if there was, but if we have an engineered plan that needs to come up with this thing, we should have the engineer certify that. If we don't have an engineered plan, then, we'll rely upon our sense to decide what it is. These are small, and, it's not something that's
Yeah,
very
remember
large.
the guy who, was a small planner, he, has a house on, down by, remember the place where the big rock was in the middle of the bog?
Oh,
And then
yes,
he moves up and has a little thing that was only like 5,000
yes.
yards that he was moving. And we just said, okay, and then he sent the check for the, 5,000 that he had
For
moved.
the removal that was there. We run into, small 10-acre farms, and we run into somebody such as, the Makepeace company that winds up doing that. Our real issue is with the larger farms as they've gotten bigger, and they wind up having, essentially traffic jams and everything else that we wind up dealing with this thing. And that's what we need to, get under,
Well,
a handle on.
can I make a suggestion?
Myra, yes.
Just looking at your, earth removal bylaws, as you probably know, 9.17B says the applicant shall be required to cover all costs for review of the proposal by an engineer or other expert as the earth removal committee sees fit, and chosen by the earth removal committee, so you can't have peer review. The applicant shall also be required to cover the cost of monitoring the project by an agent of the committee's choosing.
Yeah.
So my question would be, and, having someone like that could be in your motion, and then to the extent that Makepeace has been, taking material out of these 3 sites, and thinking that they're under an agricultural exemption, since whenever, I guess the most, what was it, 2019, 2017? All this time, they could be required to hire someone to figure all this out for the committee, so that you can get a true accounting of what kind of money you've lost.
Yeah.
Like the volume, like you said, from the plan.
Mhm.
So where are their truck sheets, and can they show that they sold it to another bog, or they, sold it to another bog owner?
I'm not sure that I wish to go to the point where we're saying that we have lost or, not having a true accounting yet, Margaret. We need to essentially, like you said, come back and make sure that everything that has been done properly. And, I more than agree with that. If we wound up having a forensic analysis of what has gone on all of this, that will get to be an interesting experience that's going to be there with all of this. I have, the committee has gone through the exercise with GAF engineering, and we have confidence in GAF's ability to give us good guidance on all of this.
But GAF is the paid engineer of the entity that you
But
now.
Barry, I would only differ with you about that a paid engineer who is reputable and that is somebody that is essentially going to be, if I hired another company and went in there to go over GAF's numbers on all of this, we could, the planning board and others have, engineers that would be, able to take a, second look at some of this, and we could choose somebody such as that. That's what I'm talking about, is having somebody that will go in to give a, take a look where it was, where it started, and then where it is now.
So you do agree that
I
somebody
don't disagree.
apart from GAF
Yeah.
ought to have a look at this?
I believe with the doubt that's being sown about the earth removal committee, and as you're talking essentially whether haven't done everything on the P's and Q's the way it should be, I want to essentially reassure the citizens and everybody else that we're doing a good job with all of this.
But in fairness to you, I don't think you should be so hard on yourself. I mean, people, people
No.
give you information, I mean, you gotta,
I know, but
until you know there's a problem, so I don't think
my
you should be so tough
point
on
being
yourself.
though is, I'd like to get back to, so that, I don't wanna speak disparagingly about anybody until I have evidence for it, and, that's my point.
Well, no one's
So-
speaking disparagingly about anything, but I can tell you from my experience that when you have a circumstance like this, usually, the first thing you think about is independence. A new, fresh, independent set of eyes, because remember, the person that's been going in there giving you your annual reports every year has been who?
GF,
The engineer for who?
yeah, thank
The
you.
person you now think could be cheating you.
But-
So the basic step, the first step in that
I
circumstance
don't
is
want-
independence.
I don't necessarily feel that GAF has been, not square with everybody. When they stamp a plan, that's their business that's there.
Can I just say, okay, yeah, they stamp a plan. In my view, the way I look at this, stamping the plan is different from what happens after they stamp the plan. Yeah, that much could have come out and, they may be accurate that they took that much volume out and that's what the slopes are. But what we're trying to figure out is where did it go? And
Well,
was it really an agricultural use?
Well, the agricultural use, Meg, is the end
It's the end result of the pit.
result. If you were looking to just have all of Makepeace's material go to agriculture, is that how
No,
you're
I'm
wording this?
just saying that in order to figure out how much they owe for the fees, that you need to know how much went to sand their bogs or some other spot,
Okay,
and how much was
I
sold.
understand it, Michael.
The material that comes off the bar
Yeah,
is sold, so that's 25 cents on the,
10 cents.
on the, thing. So they're selling it to Joe Schmo down the street, that's 25 cents. They're selling it to, Reed, that's 25 cents. They're selling it to, Joe Schmo Cement Company, that's 25 cents. So it's always 25 cents on the total load that comes out of the, property.
10 cents.
But I think,
Oh,
No, he's talking about what Lee's reading, we're not talking about what
they're
Lee's reading.
selling, it's 10 cents.
can I just point out that your bylaws, so if you wanna make a note of it, section 9.1.7E is an echo, says that with regard to these examinations every 12 months,
Yeah.
that, your rules and regulations, I presume you have, shall, not may,
Yep.
shall require the site to be inspected by the ERC authorized agent. So I said earlier, you shouldn't be so tough on yourselves, but I just point out to you that it would seem to me to be a reasonable question to ask, why would the ERC authorize as the agent to give them their report that they're compelled to have every 12 months, when that agent is the same agent of the person you're effectively auditing? So, as I said before, I think you're being too tough on yourself, but if you decide that your authorized agent, which you shall delegate, is the same agent for the person, I think that if you filled the Roman Colosseum with independent people and said, show your hands if you think that's a smart idea, I don't think you'd get many hands in the air, other than maybe Makepeace's.
Barry, I think that, we'll explore the feasibility, which I think is we generate, we have the cash that's coming back to the town. And, that we would hire somebody to take a look at this. And, that through the planning board engineer, to take a look at, how the numbers that GAF, will present us with, and, taking a look at that. Dick,
But
you
we
have a-
are going to require that they have certification, and the engineer that certifies every quarter.
Their engineer will certify it, ours will have the ability to
Yeah,
check it.
but basically, we do have the certified engineer giving us a report every quarter,
Their engineer.
which is, yeah, that's a certified engineer.
It's a professional company, I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, right,
it wouldn't be in business long if they were cheating everybody,
that doesn't.
Well, sure.
I mean, I know what you're saying, that
I'm not
happens.
the one saying that.
But some
I'm asking
oversight.
a question, and when you have a question, all I'm telling you is that I think you are subjecting yourselves to substantial criticism if, when you're faced as you are here with objective verifiable information that something has not been done right, that you hire as the person to audit, the person who is the paid expert for the alleged wrongdoer. All I'm saying is, if I were you, that's the last thing I would do.
But, if 1 minute, Joe, I'll get to you, that, Barry, we aren't hiring them to audit, we're hiring them, or Makepeace is hiring them, to certify that the amount of material that came out.
That's an audit. That is an
No,
audit.
that's a certification that by an engineering standard, what Makepeace has given us for truck trips is actually what came out. It's then up to our, second to say, does this seem viable? Is this something that is correct? And that would be the certification that we're looking for from another engineer.
I'd like to say too, I think that in that case, the other engineering firm that gets hired to double check these things should be paid for by that applicant also.
They
Praise the
would-
Lord.
Yeah, they would be. But-
Yeah, that's what the bylaw says.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
what it says.
right, yes.
Barry, you have
I
a,
also think that, they should probably, if they're gonna do their 50 truckloads for the day, and then they decide they're gonna haul for them, that should be at the end of the day, it shouldn't be a mixed thing, they're hauling at the same time, because then you're getting things lost in the shuffle.
well,
Because you can get 60 trucks, 70 trucks that way, Also, I think that, there should be some accountability to see how much they are actually taking for agriculture to their own farms, so that they're not, they're not getting cheated, state, whoever's getting their taxes ain't getting cheated that way either.
that is, would be one of the, if we allow the Makepeace to Makepeace transfers to come out of these pits. Right now, we haven't we stopped it.
Sure.
And essentially what we're doing right now is there's no Makepeace to Makepeace. It's only commercial sales that come out of this, be it to whatever entity that's coming out of there. If we did, allow, Makepeace to Makepeace to come out of a permitted pit, a permitted area, would have to have that tally, because there would be a question mark of, where's the rest of the dirt?
Right.
We only have 50 trucks, but yet there's 100 trucks worth of material that left.
Right.
And that's what we would need to have something like
So you
that.
can kind of fudge your numbers, you know what I mean?
Yes,
You know what
I know.
mean?
Yeah. So, that's, I'd like to get back to, we came tonight to do the communication part of this, to, notify all the other, applicants, all the other permits that we have, that this, agricultural exemption that exists does not apply to cranberry sales or sales to another cranberry grower. That's not a non-commercial sale, that counts as one of your 50 trucks.
And Robert, when you buy from Makepeace, did
Yes.
you get an invoice on that?
Yes,
And so you'd have a bill of lading that would show delivery date and quantity?
yeah, well, actually, I have the ability to pick it up myself.
Or in that case, do they give you an
Yeah,
invoice?
you still get an invoice, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So, Are we,
So we made the motion,
yeah,
now the question is, how do you wanna work?
Well, I'd like to just have it where we take and notify the applicants of the 50 loads per day, that's not agriculture. Or agriculture is not exempt if you sell it. I'd like to wait till after we go to the site walk and get more information on the site walk before we make any other decisions.
but, we can wait until after the site walk, but, would you allow me to make a verbal communication to all of the applicants that this is, necessary, that I
On the-
just,
Yeah, on the 50
They need to be
loads, yes.
notified, yes.
50 loads, that there is, I really wanna do that so that we don't wind up having anybody else that would be unaware.
Correct.
If we're going to do the site, we will do the site walk at 8 AM on Saturday morning and, get going on that with, GAF taking us to each site.
And we have another person coming too.
Mr. Garner
Patrick
will
Garner?
be there also.
Yes.
Is he an engineer?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just like to hear what
Yeah.
each one's gonna say and before we make
That's
decisions
right.
on.
If we, let's go through that, we'll raise some of the questions that we brought here tonight. And then I'd like to not let this thing dangle for too long. I like to keep, going at it. I'd also like to give everybody a break and maybe we meet again in 2 weeks and, not this week, and not next week, but the week after. And, to bring this thing back up again as to where we are.
So for a little parliamentary procedure, we should make a motion that we authorize you to move forward verbally
To communicate.
to
with
clarify
everybody.
this with all the permit.
If we're gonna send out a letter, I'd rather have the letter try to include as much information as it would, and, that we would do any more procedure or policy changes.
But we still should say it's okay for you to go forward with that.
I really wanna communicate with everybody and get this thing
So
cleared
is
up.
there anybody that
immediately.
could second that?
I'll do it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
You have authorized the chairman to communicate verbally with all of the, permit holders
Right.
that essentially,
Distinguish between commercial and agricultural.
there is, if it's sold to another cranberry grower or anybody, that is still a commercial sale. And, that's it. So if we wind up, it's pretty easily, done by talking to the haulers, the people that are doing the moving of the material in town. And I'll just reconfirm with the site guys that, what's going on and, that there have been issues.
And will you send a letter, following up?
We'll send the letter, and I think as we include all of the wider points, why not put in, I think, doing an engineer, having an engineer certify the truck slips that come out here with us. And then having the, possibility of an audit and, auditing the, truck slips by having another engineer look at them. If I talk to the planning board, Jim Walsh and the planning board, they have a resident engineer that they use. And what would it take to review the plans and the, truck slips? This is what they say. Would you take a look at this for us and, do a forensic, look at this? And, that might be less than dragging around another engineer to get into, back and forth with Bill Madden or, dueling engineers here. So I don't wanna, do any of that. So, let's see.
So Saturday, we're gonna meet.
Where are we
and
meeting?
On the sites, at Make Pieces,
59 Federal Road.
right across from Ocean Spray.
Yes.
Okay, then, I thought we had already planned on meeting next Wednesday,
Well,
to
that was on the
finish up this
schedule for a
stuff.
regular week, I'd like to pass on that. And if we met in 2 weeks out, or if we wound up having a regular one.
So that would be 2 weeks from last night.
Yep, 2 weeks from last time.
And we'll put together our discussion on the certified engineer and everything that goes
Well,
along with it.
think about it and think what you want. I wanna have all the discussion here and, having the discussion about this.
So
thing
that's,
here.
it'll be here, but it'll be, 2
Think
weeks
about
from
how
last
you
night.
want to frame all of this stuff, so. that would be the, best way to be doing it. And, let's again, keep it open and, basic discussion about what we're, where we're going with this. In the meantime, Saturday morning, we'll get together at 8 a.m., 1:31, yeah.
And we're gonna look at 3 different sites there.
3 sites.
So, Gary, should we just meet at Ocean Springs, parking lot and then go
Yeah,
across from there, cause I'm sure,
we'll meet right at the entrance to 59, Federal Road.
and in contact with, Mr. Garner?
Mr. Garner. I have already communicated with
Okay.
him. I sent him the address and everything. Again, Barry and Margaret, thank you for your input to this. We wanna make sure that we, meet, and exceed the standards, that we're all looking for, and that's to be fair and open and honest in the discussions of all of this, so I appreciate that.
And keep everybody else on.
Yeah, and Shirley just.
No, you can
Oh,
keep,
okay.
yeah, and just, yeah, going back to these plans, I mean, just one thing that would provide assurance for people is that where they did say they were going to build bogs or reservoirs or whatever, are those actually there? You know, all these earth removal permits were granted for the construction of bogs, and then, I know it goes back a ways, and maybe you weren't on the committee, but in 2008, there was a removal on lots 2-1 and 4-3, 719 cubic yards down in the lower right there for bogs.
Yeah.
But that's now solar. So, you know, I know that, you know, if it's not an agricultural use under the bylaws, it doesn't end up to be an agricultural use, there's supposed to be a bond
Right.
posted, so was there some kind of bond, but I don't know what you do now.
But if there was 719 yards, you said?
719,000 cubic yards,
Okay.
almost,
And
whatever.
where was it, Margaret?
It's lot 2-1.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, on the map here, on the lower right, it's right above the Carver, Wareham line, it's right below the landfill, they're putting in, they're putting in solar there now, I think it's almost there.
Oh, it's on the same side as the landfill?
Yeah, just south of the landfill, they put in
There
2
there was
solar.
never a permit that was issued for that one. I remember when
Yeah.
your inquiry was for that, but we never issued a permit for that.
I do believe there was one, my notes could be wrong, I'll go back and look.
Yeah, there was no
No.
permit issued there, as far as
No,
I can
we didn't
remember.
have a
In
permit.
2008, there was no permit.
And
No.
also, I've been in that site and it's, it looks like they just cut and filled what was there
They did.
because there was no hill there.
That was right to the right-hand side of the landfill.
Yes.
And there are 2 solar sites in there now. One of them was done, but if there's solar there, Meg, you should
I think
talk
she's
with.
talking about the original, the original solar site, not the new one.
It's
It's
just
the old one.
on this yellow here, it's site C4 was the old one, the first one, and now the new one is C7. And,
And that's the landfill right above it,
yes,
in the gray?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the
it's-
gray landfill.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was never a permit that we issued for, the area C4 or C7, either of those.
I believe conservation actually was asked to walk that,
I don't have my phone.
and we looked at it and we saw no problem with what they were doing,
Right.
so.
Alright, I'll go back and look at the records that I got from,
Okay.
the office and let you know about that, because,
Yep.
um,
Positively, I can say with a great deal of assurance that we never issued a permit for that. That was there. Joe?
Just a simple question. When they're gonna be building the bogs, I'm not sure if that's up to you guys to approve that, where they're gonna build bogs, is that you guys? No. I just wonder why, I know that, Smith Hammond, where Golden Fields Pond is,
Yep.
has a terrible time in drought season.
Yes.
Holding water.
But-
So it kinda doesn't make any sense to me that they're building a bog there, even though they're gonna have a water hole, what's gonna charge that water hole? My concern is that later on, they're just gonna dig the water holes, for 5,000 yards on the earth removal and just keep.
One of the things,
Keep
Joe,
working,
I happen to know that area well. I owned Fisk Bog up, on Federal Road, Tydona Road there. and I owned that for years. And the hydrology is all changed up in there with the advent of the capping and the filling of the landfill.
Okay.
And so there's more runoff that goes down there. To me, from a dirt sense, it made good sense to dig the water hole. It's well, not Hammond, but over next to Hammond Street, where they're doing this zero Hammond Street removal, where the large area is, gate 24 going down in there. Because that's gonna catch all of the material that comes down off of the landfill. It's capped and sealed. But it moved all of the water, that whole area there is impervious now. And so the runoff is going right down under the bogs, and that will catch an enormous amount of water down there. That's
Yeah,
dry as a bone on Tabor Randall and all of that that's up in there.
Yeah, I just know we've had to pump for years over from the Westwood pump from Carver side
I
over
know.
to Smith Hammond to
Yes.
fill everything back up on that side.
And then they catch it, and then they could put it back up in there on those Stevens and the stuff that come down next to Shaky Bottom Bridge and all of that.
Yeah,
It's up in there.
somewhat, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's where the water hole is gonna go in there, and that made pretty good sense,
But what's gonna recharge it? If Holyfields isn't getting recharged, what's gonna recharge? I know you said the runoff, but if we're not getting any runoff, it's, you know, it's a drought
Well,
season
if
anyway.
the drought is there, but if they go down into the ground deep enough, it'll have a
So then
resource.
it'd be an aquifer there, right?
Yeah, it would
So then the
probably be
tailwater
down.
recovery would also be in the aquifer.
Yeah, it would come down and catch the water.
So then the pesticides that they're holding into the tailwater is gonna be right into the aquifer.
It will then be recycled back into the bog, and, that's the idea, is to have a water resource that would be there, that would be available for bog use, and essentially, a
Well,
sealed.
He's asking a different question. I think he's saying, what sense does it make to give them a permit to allow them to dig a water hole that's in a sense gonna be a funnel right into the aquifer? Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, they're gonna go down into the aquifer, and that's what's gonna recharge the reservoir, but if it's in also runoff, but if we're in a drought, you're not gonna get any runoff.
That's,
The other problem that I'm having is if they're gonna have a tailwater recovery, the purpose of tailwater recovery is to recycle your water back up. So what's gonna happen is they're gonna let the pesticide go down, holding the tailwater recovery, which is now in the aquifer, so now you have pesticide residue into the aquifer.
Anything bad comes in, goes right into the
Then they make the
aquifer.
pump back up to the top reservoir and recycle it
Doesn't
again.
make a lot of sense, you know?
it's,
Yeah.
it winds
So
up
just
recycling.
curious on why they would, you know, it just doesn't make sense.
Is this actually the case that their tailwater recovery pond is going into the aquifer?
But you're gonna go down, right? I mean, well, how far are you gonna dig down anyway? You're gonna be what?
It
4
shouldn't
feet
be
above?
allowed to go into the aquifer.
But you're gonna go down, right, close to the
Yes.
aquifer, right?
Yeah, you are hitting the aquifer, because you
Right,
now trying to get the
Well, it
water.
shouldn't be allowed to, no, that
But-
tailwater recovery
But
pond.
that's what's happening, no?
Yeah.
For years, we've argued that there should be call it
Liner.
swimming pool liner.
Yep.
So you recover your water, you should get more self-sufficient, but the bad stuff that's in the water, particularly post-picking, as an example, would make its way into the aquifer. And I've heard other people say, well, we put layers of sand under it, but they really don't, because deeper they go, they have a higher probability of positive recharge. So your point, sir, is one we've been trying to make to the cranberry industry for 30 years. And they know it's a problem. They know it's a problem.
One of the sites that we had permitted over off the Cranberry Road is a large 35-foot deep hole that just goes down in the aquifer. We didn't allow any runoff from any of the bogs to enter them. So that is just essentially pure water that is being used in the bogs. And they needed water up in the bogs there, but we don't allow any entrance, so it's not a tailwater recovery. It
But
is
there
a
will be
source,
on that one,
it's a
though, right?
source of Gilmore's right next up the Cranberry Road.
But, I mean, I don't need to pick up, but was it 19.2 acres? That will have a tailwater recovery, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's gonna happen. That'll recycle the water and essentially do that.
Right.
And
But it's got the
recycle,
whole
use the
diagonal or
water.
something like that, right?
Yep, they'll all come back up in there, and, that's gonna generate water, but it will also catch the water and then be able to catch it. I like to think that as we're getting better, Mr. Tripp, at using the materials that we use, that we are, reaching the same way as we're getting into the scientifically operated cranberry bogs. We are getting onto point, essentially having the right amount of nutrients to go on that is being better. Less and less are we going on with the Air Force coming in and dumping materials. I sat in a plane in Louisiana that was like you're wrapping your legs around a tank of some organophosphate or something, and what they use on sugarcane and everything else. Here, we're essentially heading to precision agriculture. That's what all of these new bogs are going to be getting us to. I have 27 acres of cranberry bog that we have never had a helicopter go over. We put on micronutrients and feed this. Nothing leaves the bog that's there until we wind up flooding it for harvest and
Yeah,
all that.
we've spent some time, as you made the research to know, finding this, and actually hear people tell us that when they drop the stuff out of the helicopter, none of it gets into the ditches and gullies. Somehow there's some, gravity has its own miraculous,
Yes, Barry, we all know that isn't correct, but the idea is to keep it within the confines of the acreage that you
just curious, on the new bogs today, I know what the numbers were a few years ago. What is the, acre feet per year on a new bird versus for
Say
total
again,
new-
the what?
acre foot of water per year,
Oh,
that down to now?
I don't know yet, as to how much I wind up using 8 inches of water on top. We have 9 acre feet permit for water
Yeah.
now. We can't continue to sustain that, so we need to be able to get down to, I might have 3 acre feet that I use versus 9 in the old days, Barry, on this acreage that I'm using now. But we were out there with lasers in the entire time getting this
Oh, yeah, that's the
slid
fact,
away.
yeah, that's-
So we wind up having that's the dream that Makepeace and all of the forward-looking cranberry growers are trying to get to in doing this. So as we wind up getting this more into precision agriculture, and as I say 1,000 times, rather than we have these wonderful old bogs, so there's the heritage of the cranberry industry. But if we don't modernize these things into the 22nd century, we're gonna be out of business. And so,
Well, I don't wanna give you business advice, but until you can take a whole lot of sugar out of those products, you ought to be awfully careful about how much you invest in for bogs in the future, because your demand is flat. It's been flat for decades, and even with international, so anyone who's investing in bogs for the long term,
don't
You get
discourage
attention
me,
to how
Barry, I'll sell my
consumers-
property and a Walmart will come in.
yeah, but you know, no it won't, no it won't. And it's important you bring that up, because Walmart's too smart to put a Walmart in every corner, number one.
Okay.
Number two, no, sir, you brought it up, so I'm entitled to respond. It's important that this fiction stop. One Walmart, one underperforming Walmart does more than 60 million a year, which is what our industry does now. I guess maybe it bumped up to 80 last year. So one Walmart produces more revenue than the whole industry. They pay for their water, they don't get it for free. And they can't pollute with impunity. So you need to be very, very careful with the Walmart argument when you're talking to people who know a little bit more about it. That's my only point. I've listened to it politely long enough. The Walmart argument is fiction. The same way cranberries are Wonderberry is fiction, when they're so sugar loaded as they are.
I understand exactly where you're coming from.
Again, to make a point on pesticides and such is that, don't forget, we have to contain anything that we're putting on our books. And we have to watch weather extremely close, so that anytime we are gonna put something on, that we're not gonna have a heavy rain and cause that material to go over our flume planks and into other areas.
With all due respect, does that always happen, though?
Well, I don't know about you,
You're right,
but
if that's the way it's supposed to be, and that's how you're supposed to be watching the weather,
but that is really done.
responsibility.
Now, if it's not done, then I'm looking at that grower saying, wait a minute, you're gonna get us in, all us in trouble. We wanna contain anything that we put on that target book.
And I agree with you, that's the way it should be, and that's what a responsible grower would do, but not, you know, just in any industry, not just cranberries, the right thing is not always done. So, the fact that it could happen, and it does happen, is a fact. It does happen, you know, we get a big, all of a sudden, we get a big, summer storm, boom, we get, you know, a surprise storm, an inch of rain, and all of a sudden, everybody's got water everywhere, you're in bloom, you're gonna pull the planks, and whatever was there is gone, or else you're
That's
gonna
what
fly
we're
out.
watching though, I mean, we're watching the weather.
I
I
understand.
mean, I
that,
hope you are,
I
so
worked
that
in
you
Makepeace
know
for
if you're
7
gonna
years,
get
and I was
possible
one
showers.
of over 150 acres, I know it happens, I know it happens,
Well,
you know.
I'm gonna be watching you.
Yes, do we have, we'll reconvene.
Can I just make 2 points, just to go back to, my map? I actually pulled out the earth removal permits for those 2 sites, and unless, you know, maybe I'm reading something wrong, but, you know, I can, earth removal permit, here it is. Lot 2, 1, 2, 3. 1,000 cubic yards in 2014. And then this is the other one, lot 2, map 131, and this is the 700,000.
That's not good.
No, it's over on the east side.
You're talking down here, right?
I'm talking about on the east side of Federal Road, yes.
The one at the very bottom.
On the Carver line where there's 2 solar projects now, is my reading of the permits, is that earth removal permits were given for those 2 solar sites, and one of them at least, so this would be good to clarify, I'm just saying, that was how I read the permit, maybe I'm wrong.
We don't have any permits for these, and,
I got this from your,
well,
Right.
this, I don't see, that there is a,
I didn't copy all the permits, so maybe we can go back and look into this, I would appreciate it if we could.
yeah, that's right on the corner of Federal Road, going up in there. No, there was not a permit issued for that site. That's the solar now, and
Right, but there's a earth removal map that I got from your files.
these, I don't know.
All right, maybe I'm wrong. I'll go back and check, I just wanted to let you know that's where
Yeah,
that's what it seemed to me.
okay.
And then the other thing is that,
Did you say that was 2000, I'm sorry, did you say that was 2014?
one was 2008, then there was this from 2014, earth removal plans for solar, okay, so maybe that's not yours. Anyway, it'd be good to get an idea of what earth removal has been done. And I'll go back and check.
We had, I will say with a fair degree of certainty that we haven't, where those 2 solar sites are, right next to the, landfill. And, that's where there has been no,
Okay.
permit issued for
Okay.
that.
Well, the one that you're talking about, the newest one,
Mhm.
they only just cut the trees, they never took anything out of there for material.
Okay,
They might
so,
have leveled it, but they did take no material out of there.
That's what we discussed last time we met, we said they did cuts and fills and they just put the solar
Okay.
up.
Smooth it out, yeah.
That's what
Okay.
we're
I'm talking about the newest one
The
that they
newest one,
did this
yeah.
year,
Right,
was no material taken out of there.
right.
At some point, Makepeace draws up plans that they might not have brought to fruition to us, but I honestly assure you that
Okay.
we didn't have any permits issued on that.
The solar here now,
Yeah.
that was
Okay,
there
your
for
point's well
the
taken,
last
and,
how many years?
just one other thing on the, dust mitigation plan.
There's a road
Yep.
just
I think
before
there's
the
a
dump road,
mistake
they
because
just
it
put
talks
in.
about
So that's all
Rocky
solar.
Meadow Road,
It's right up
I don't
against
think
this,
there's any
it's right
way.
up against this one,
Please, guys,
but they didn't take no material out.
Rocky
They just
Meadow
cut the
Road.
trees
Yeah,
and
so,
put solar.
The 2020, February 2020 dust mitigation plan says,
this was, the Makepeace dust mitigation plan
Right.
that they submitted to us.
right,
And, I don't know where Rocky Meadow Road is, and,
sounds like
That, that would be, the helicopter guy, what's the name?
Middleborough,
You got those owns the bogs with the cell tower near it and.
okay, Scott Haney.
Yeah.
I don't know, but this was on the dust mitigation plan that Makepeace submitted as to how they were gonna control dust.
right, so I think it might be like just a typo, like
Yeah.
maybe they just used the plan from
Most
somewhere else.
likely that they, used a generic plan,
Right.
because we asked for dust mitigation
Right.
features on the, when they submit the, plan to us. And, that probably was something that they might have used somewhere else, and, that was just folded in there, most likely.
So maybe that could be updated, like, section 3.2, modification of earth removal process, it says.
Yep.
You know, the phasing and loading shielded from residents on Rocky Meadow Street, so maybe it should be shielded from residents on Cranberry Village.
Cranberry Village, essentially, that would be there to
Yeah.
shield
Rocky
it.
Meadows over in Middleborough.
Yes, it is.
But,
She
yeah,
said
one-
one time,
It's
Makepeace
full
did
of
own some bog off of Rocky Meadow.
yeah, but
Or
Margaret
Rocky,
makes a
whatever.
good point about that there should be the right verbiage that's in the, dust mitigation plan.
Right, for all the residences
Yeah.
around.
And that is, I didn't mention it, but I also, tried to, get back in touch with Kevin Cole, the Board of Health agent, and see where he is on the, dust issues.
Okay,
That are there with DEP and being able to test, for, dust issues that what are available to us to be able to determine, I guess I'd say, the dangerousness of dust and silica, that's there, and how they might be able to, assist us in measuring, monitoring, and, doing something like that, because, the dust agents are, on a day like today, could be, difficult, and, we wanna make sure that they're, available to us, and, how we might be able to avail ourselves of it. So, anyhow.
okay.
Is there any, more discussion? I will leave here to communicate to the other, permit holders about this, and, thank you all for coming. Thanks for the interactive, feedback, and, we'll, I'll make the next meeting a week from this, not next Wednesday, the Wednesday after.
Date.
Date,
What day is it?
I'll tell you in a moment, guys. That is going to be, not the 28th, it will be May, 5th. 5/5,
And that's what,
at 7 p.m.
That's Wednesday,
Wednesday.
5/5.
there's a very good chance there'll be a, conservation meeting that night.
Okay.
7 p.m.?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you all very much. Is there a
Thank you.
motion?
Move we adjourn until Saturday morning.
Second.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hey, Sean, could I have those maps that you're passing out?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you
That's okay.
didn't wanna
I
get one.
waved away because I
You want
couldn't
mine?
handle it.
I guess,
All right,
Yeah, but,
You want to pass these?
Yeah.
all right.
okay. Thank you, Margaret.
Well,
And,
thank you for your help and your willingness to answer our questions.
No.
Appreciate
No
it.
problem at all.
you,
Thank you.
We're going to be nothing
you
but
understand,
upfront.
I'm a commercial applicant.
Yep.
And we always emphasize plant and don't let her go.
It's just.
Well,